Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from some of our podcast sponsors. We also want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but you have to know this. Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools in the areas of compliance, communication, and risk management. Final Forms also helps your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and about all the forms that go with athletics. Final Forms can also help with team communication, with attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for ADs, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. Plus, it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started and find out what Final Forms can do for you. We also want to thank Huddle for their support. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros use Huddle to help their teams play at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Go to violetdefense.com for more information about their great products. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and find out exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you by going to hometownticketing.com and talk with their team of professionals. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes that really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them show you how to take your athletic program from good to great. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're taking a trip. We're headed from sunny Florida all the way up to Alaska, and we're going to be visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director at Wasilla High School in Wasilla, Alaska. Stacia, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, you come very highly recommended, so no pressure there. But it's always great to hear what's happening in another part of the country. So
absolutely,
we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, went to school, and how your path, led you to Wasilla, Alaska.
Okay, right on. Well, I was born and raised in Alaska, down on the Kenai Peninsula, which is about 4 hours south of where I currently work. I graduated from Kenai Central High School in 1992. And from there, the winds took me to Maine, of all places. So I went from one extreme to the other. And so I went to undergrad at the University of Maine in Orono, Maine, and I was a member of the women's basketball team there for 4 years. I was coached under Joanne Palumbo Macaulay, who, just as a side note, she coached us at Maine. She moved on to Michigan State, and then she just recently ended her career at Duke University. So it was quite the experience to have a coach of her caliber be at the University of Maine there. And from there, I went on and made a couple pit stops. I was in New York for a while. I was in West Virginia for a while, and then ultimately ended up in California, where in California is where I made my first steps to get into secondary education. And then I have been in secondary education ever since then. So I spent 7 years in California. I did make a brief stop in Oregon for a year, where I was teaching and coaching at a community college there, and then ultimately made my way back home. And I am completing my 16th year back up in the state of Alaska. When I initially moved back, I did go back to my alma mater. So I was at Kenai Central for 8 years, and then 8 years ago, I moved up to Wasilla, Alaska, which is where I currently am as the activities director.
Well, again, our regular listeners hear me say this all the time, but it's true. I love to hear the stories about the travels and the various stops. We're very much alike. I was born and raised, started my career in Oregon, and then, went to Florida, came back to the West Coast, and then back in Florida. Got to ask, what community college were you at in Oregon?
I was at Southwestern in Coos Bay.
Okay. No, well, I was at Umpqua College in Roseburg
Yes.
for 5 years.
Very
And,
good.
you mentioned, Coach P. We've had Coach P on as a guest on the podcast. So there's another
Love it.
connection. Yeah. Very, very cool stuff. Again, I just love how the stories intertwine. For our listeners, we're visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director at Wasilla High School in Alaska. We're going to take a quick break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in athletic form registration, but you got to know this. Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools in the areas of compliance, communication, and even risk management. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, reminders for parents about policies and physicals, and all the forms related to athletics. Can help with team communication, can help with attendance, can even help with certification management for coaches and eligibility for athletic directors, rosters, reports, all the things that come across your desk as an AD. And it does all this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. It's time that you had a talk with a team that's walked in your shoes. If you're ready to take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake. Find out exactly what Final Forms can do for you. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director at Wasilla High School in Wasilla, Alaska. Stacia, you've had a long career, and you mentioned you continue to coach now, but talk about putting on that AD hat for the first time and sitting on the other side of the desk. How was that? What were some of the things that maybe surprised you about the position, or that were really rewarding about now becoming also an AD?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an AD for probably 16 or 17 years of my 22 years of being in public education. And so I was able to start very young and kind of being thrown into that fire of being an AD. And it's certainly a role that I don't believe that most people truly understand what activities directors and what athletic directors actually do, because so much of our work is behind the scenes. It's the preparation for the event. It's the preparation for the finale, and so I've been fortunate enough where I've continued to coach. I coach girls basketball, and so I still wear that coaching hat. But it certainly, when you put on the AD hat, it is, when you're coaching, you're worrying about your one program. You're worrying about that group of kids and everything that is functioning around that program. When you put on your AD hat, you are worrying about every single item that needs to be taken care of. And so it's definitely an eye-opening experience. And as I have gotten older and more experienced, and I think we get better at our job every year. If you're in that growth mindset, that's just the reality. You continue to grow, you continue to get better. But as I'm getting towards the end of my career now, one of the things that I want to make a difference, at least in the state of Alaska, is helping our new ADs. I think it's an area that, at least in our state, that it's a need. So many times, individuals are placed into an athletic director position because maybe they played a couple sports in high school, or maybe they coached cross country 5 years ago at a different school. It's not in all districts or states are we preparing, or they're not getting the most prepared person to fill fill the AD role. And so one of the, and actually with Sandy Wagner, who is an executive director at ASA, our hope is within the next 5 years that we can develop a program, some type of mentorship program within our state to help the new ADs. Because so we would like to start with some type of mentoring program in Alaska. And this is really, like I was mentioning, I think that our role is so important as an AD, but unfortunately, people that are not prepared are put into positions. And I can't speak for the rest of the nation as to how, ADs go in and out of their school districts or their schools. But I know in Alaska, we are unique and very special and very hard to compare to other states in the lower 48 because of our, we have such a diverse 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. You've got your rural communities and a couple, urban, but we're very rural, with small, we have small 1A schools with 20 kids in it. We have hundreds of just small schools. And so we'll have individuals that, okay, hey, we need you to be the AD. And this teacher has no training, no experience, and really no, a lack of leadership to help them get the ball rolling as to what they need to do. So steps, having, steps 1 through 10 of, hey, when you go into an AD role, these are the 10 things, the 10 most crucial things that you need to, first be working on. So we hope to develop that in the state to help our the new and younger people that are going to soon be replacing us to understand the scope of what really being an effective and successful AD looks like. Those of us that have been doing this for years knows, that organization is your number one key. I mean, you have to be organized because there's so many, you are dealing with so many different sports with so many different teams in that one sport. And then you're dealing with the activities lens of, you've got your drama, debate, forensics going on, that there is a lot of moving parts. You have to be extremely organized and be able to, itemize each day, what is the most important thing that I need to get done from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. because I know at 9:30 I'm going out to lunch duty. So just learning how to organize, your day's schedule. You have to be a great communicator. You have to be a great communicator to, the teachers in your building so that they feel that they know what is going on in the activities world. You have to be a great communicator to your coaches. You have to be a great communicator with parents and with our student athletes, with our local businesses. So you have to be able to be a good speaker, be confident with your speaking abilities. I mean, just, a week ago, we had our spring parent meeting and, there was probably close to 250 people in our theater. And, so just being able to communicate where people are understanding, what you're trying to express. And so being organized, being a great communicator, and then, having a great, relationship capacity. You have to be able to, it's just like when you're in a classroom, you're communicating with all different types of students and they all learn in different ways. And you have to communicate, to them in different ways. And the same, we could use the analogy of being a coach and a team. You've got 15 kids out there on a, volleyball or a basketball team, and they all learn differently. They're all motivated differently. And it's the same thing as an AD. You have to reach all of your coaches. You have to be able to communicate to each of them, in a different way and motivate them to be the best that they can be and to share what your culture and climate is at your school, share your, the same values. And so that's what we're doing as an AD to all of our coaches. So there's a lot of similarities, really transferring from a head coach's position to an AD position.
No, absolutely. You're just looking at things from that a more global standpoint, and that's part of the education is letting coaches see that, hey, you're a part of a team. It's not just your sport in a vacuum. You're part of our athletic program. Very,
Exactly.
very good stuff. I'm going to give you two resources. You probably already have them, talking about starting that mentoring program. Part of our podcast every Tuesday, we have the Mentoring Minute with Dan Como. He's our state mentoring coordinator. I'll probably even hook you two up on through email. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention the Athletic Director's Toolbox, our book with all the top 20 tools for success for ADs. But for our listeners, we're visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director at Wasilla High School in Alaska. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to help their teams and their athletes play at the highest level. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros are using Huddle to help their teams play their best. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, we're visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director at Wasilla High School in Wasilla, Alaska. Coach, one of the questions that we ask our guests has to do with mentoring, which is such an important aspect of our job. So we'd like to find out, who are some of the mentors that you've had over the years? None of us get to where we're at on our own, but who helped you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would be remiss not to mention our parents, right? My mom and dad were extremely supportive of both my brother and myself. It was just the two of us, and we ended up being, we were blessed with some athleticism, and so our mom and dad, they were those parents that did whatever it took to get us, whatever activities we wanted to be involved in, we were involved in, and they provided whatever we needed for, equipment, shoes, whatever that looked like. My parents, I remember in high school down at Kenai, they never missed an event for my brother or myself. And those, you just, and as looking through the lens that I have now and seeing parent support, I can't share how grateful I am that our parents were as supportive as they were. I mean, they didn't miss a thing. And I wish more parents were like my parents and supporting their kids, no matter if it's the most boring activity or it's the state championship final, being there for their kids. And that's, that my parents were there no matter what. And so just appreciate their, their love and commitment to allowing us to succeed athletically. Now, my brother was also a big part of my success and him being a mentor for me when I was younger. He was 5 years older than me, so I saw him go through, high school and be a very, he was a standout athlete for Kenai. He went on and he wrestled for Iowa State. And so I had that caliber of, mentor as a young student athlete. And so when I got into high school, hands down, my mentor was my head coach, Craig Young, and he was hard nosed. He was mean. He was ornery. He was a yeller, but he loved us, and he cared for us, and he treated me with nothing but respect, and he he formed me as a basketball player, and that's why I was able to go from. He was one of the reasons I was able to go from a small town with 400 kids in our school and get a full ride scholarship to the University of Maine. It was a Division I school. It wasn't the SEC or the ACC, but it was a Division I school, and we were very good. During my time of playing there, and so Coach Young was a huge part of. He was just a huge part of that, and just a special side note. When I made my way back up to Alaska and started teaching at Kenai, and I started coaching there, Craig actually came and he was my assistant. And so, you talk about the world just coming around into full circle. And I just remember being there, when I first got there that first year, and just looking down and just what a special moment for me and for him. That I went through 4 years as he was my head coach. He was the varsity coach there. I was on varsity for 4 years. He was my coach, and I learned so much from him, just the grit and hard nose and be a hard worker. And, I wasn't the most talented kid, but I made the most of what I had been given. And I blossomed under that. And that was under his tutelage. And so to be able to come back and be at the helm of that same program, and now my head coach is my assistant. I mean, it was just so special. And an opportunity that I wish more people, had that chance to do that. Craig and I went through and we won Kenai's only state title in girls basketball at the large school level in 1991. And so it just, again, just that linking of him and I together. And then my last mentor, as I previously mentioned, would be my college coach, Joanne Palumbo McCauley. She was hard nosed as well. And for me, it was just a great transition going from Craig to Joanne, because they had a lot of the same coaching styles, coaching philosophies, very hard on their kids, pushed us to be the best that we could be, break those glass ceilings. There's nothing you can't do if you put in the time, you put in the commitment, you stay together, you stay loyal to your program, you stay loyal to your coaches. You don't jump ship when it gets hard. You stay there, you find a way to work through it. And that's what we did. And so I had 4 great years of high school, and I had 4 great years of college basketball. So those would be my mentors that really helped me become the young lady that I became. And then, even as I've grown, older, they're always going to be, special to me, because they helped mold me, from my parents to my brother to Craig, and then, to Joanne.
Again, I always love hearing these stories, and you can really not just hear, you can feel, the love and respect that you have for these mentors. You and I talked a little bit about Coach P. She was on our show. Great story. Secret Warrior. Get her book. But I love the experience you talked about with your former high school coach, coming back and being your assistant. I mean, there's an example of paying it forward and paying it back with the same 2 people. Really great stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. We're going to take another quick break. We're visiting with Stacia Rustad. She's the activities director and the head girls basketball coach at Wasilla High School in Wasilla, Alaska. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information and find out exactly what these fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone. Again, we're visiting with Stacia Rustad, the activities director and the assistant girls basketball coach at Wasilla High School up in Alaska. Coach, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do at Wasilla, or maybe you did at your previous school, that you're particularly proud of? And when you take a step back, you say, boy, we really do a great job with this. Do you have some best practices you can share?
Absolutely. I actually have quite a few best practices. So feel free to shut me down if I get going and I start going off on a different path. But so as an AD here, it's super important to me to take pride in your facilities. So Wasilla is an older school. We've been functioning for a while. But just because you're old doesn't mean that you can't make the best of what you have. And so for me, that's something that I'm always stressing to my coaches is that, hey, we're going to take pride in what we have, and examples of that is, for our student athletes, after a practice, look, it's their field right now, and they need to take ownership of that. So it's, before our kids leave the facilities, it's a clean down. They're picking up trash, even if it's not theirs, head up into the bleachers, and just taking pride in your facility. As far as being proud, I've had a couple activities principals that I have, I have encouraged them to join me. We just about 3 years ago, we went into our gym and we painted all of our handrails, from one color to the next. And that was, we weren't getting paid for that. We were giving up our Sundays to update our gym with things that, that our maintenance couldn't quite get to. It wasn't high on their list. And so I said, hey, are you okay if we just get into the gym and we start making these improvements to have pride in our facilities? So when our community comes in and we have, communities that are traveling from all over the state of Alaska, they come in and be like, oh gosh, boy, this is an older school. You can tell it's an older school, but gosh, their stuff is so well taken care of. It looks good. It's first class. It looks classy. And so that is something that's very important to me, being the AD at Wasilla, is that we are always taking pride in whatever we have, no matter how old it is, the equipment, the facilities, the bleachers, whatever that looks like, presenting ourselves as best we can. So a best practice there is just being prideful of what you do have and taking care of it, to the best of your abilities. And then, passing that same passion along to your head coaches. We were fortunate enough about a handful of years ago that we were able to get our softball and baseball fields that sit on our school site. We were able to get those turfed. And that's, that is a huge, that is a huge bonus for Wasilla High School, that we had that opportunity to have that done and completed at our school. So it is nothing but, we are doing whatever we have to do to make sure that we're maintaining those facilities. Another best practice and this is just from my lens, is you've got to hire great coaches. You want great programs, you have to hire great coaches. And by great coaches, I want to make sure that I'm really being specific here. You know, we want to be successful at Wasilla. We want to win games. We want to win meets. We want to hang those region banners, and we want to hang those state championship banners. And that is all very crucial and very important to sports. But at Wasilla, when I say I'm hiring the best coaches, winning is a component of that, but being the role model for our kids is the most important, is having those leaders in charge of our programs that are great mentors for our teenagers. You know, so many of our kids need an extra set of eyes, you know, an extra person in their life that can help provide, you know, encouragement when they need it, to provide high expectations when they need it. And so for me, hiring great coaches encompasses, I want great people. It's, you know, it's great that you know how to coach basketball and you know, coach football or swim and dive, but I want that feedback coming from my parents. You know, hey, Miss Rustad, I really just appreciate, you know, the head coach of my son's program. That head coach is providing my son with valuable life lessons that he will take far beyond, you know, playing baseball for Wasilla High School. And so just a best practice as an AD is you want to find the best people, not just the best coaches, but the best people to lead your programs. And so for me, that is a huge best practice. I think another best practice is giving thanks for what we have and being thankful. You know, I'm constantly thanking my head coaches for everything that they do. You know, we just had like I mentioned earlier, we had a parent meeting for our spring sports last week. And one of the things that I took a couple minutes of that already pretty long meeting to share to all of those parents that I needed them to be thankful for the coaches that work at Wasilla High School and that are mentoring their sons and daughters. Because our coaches, you know, it's not all, you know, fun and games being a coach. And those of us that have been in this realm know that. You know, we deal with a lot of negativity. We are away from our families a lot during our in seasons. And so just making sure that our community is thankful for the people that are giving up time to spend with their children and to mentor those children. And in the very next sentence, I told our kids, you know, I said, student athletes, I want you to go home and tell your parents, you know, whoever that is, what mom and dad, if it's grandma, if it's auntie, to tell them thank you for everything that, you know, they are doing for you to be involved in activities at Wasilla High School, because they're having to bend over backwards. And, you know, whether it be money, whether it be time, whether, you know, whatever that looks like, just to be thankful. And I said, you better go home and tell your parents that you love them as well and that you're thankful for them. So a best practice for me that I am constantly sharing is to be thankful and show thanks, you know, little thank you cards to the announcer that announces all of your home, you know, football games, to, you know, thank you notes to your chain gang crew that is out there volunteering and standing in pouring rain and it's 35 degrees out. So just always giving thanks to those that are helping you function your activities department is just, through my lens, it is crucial because it's super easy to overlook people and you know, because we're so busy and there's so many things happening, you know, on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or on the weekends. Just to take that time on a Monday morning to sit down from the, you know, maybe it's the previous month that you sit down and you reflect, okay, who is helping me run this program right now that is doing it for free, especially those that are volunteering their time, and then just taking, you know, 30 minutes out of your Monday morning and handwritten notes. I don't believe in emails or texting for giving thanks. I think a handwritten note goes so much farther than a technology based thank you. So that's another best practice that that I believe is crucially important. And it goes a long ways when you give a little thank you. Those people are going to come back. Most likely, they're going to come back and keep coming back. And then they're going to be those same people that when you're in a bind and for whatever reason your announcer didn't show up, for a basketball game, you can call them, and in 30 minutes, no problem, Miss Rustad, I'm going to be there for you. So just giving thanks to everyone that helps you function your program.
Well, those are all really cool best practices. And there was kind of a theme that I noticed they're developing. You talk about taking pride in your facility and putting on, great appearance and things, getting the kids and the coaches, to be grateful. And then the other end of that circle is, letting them know, hey, I really appreciate, everything you give to this program. Very, very good stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll do this again at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, how can they get in touch with you? Can you share your email?
Absolutely. So my first name is Stacia. It's STACIA .Rustad, RUSTAD @MATSUK12 numerical K12.US.
Okay. And I can tell folks that same information is available on the NIAAA portal. So again, we're visiting with Stacia Rustad. We'll be back with some more wisdom. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to our good friends at Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive, touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Call them at 614-981-3589, or you can send them an email at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Coach, one of the questions that we ask our ADs has to do with this idea of coaching kids to be tough. And, toughness is an important aspect of the athletic experience and about life. And I remember, I'm a little older than you, 100 years ago when I was in high school, it was very common for my coaches to say something like, come on, you got to be tough, or come on, Jake, you got to suck it up. And we knew what they meant, and we did. I think over the years, we found better ways to, communicate those ideas to student athletes. But here's my question for you. How do we coach a kid, a Generation Z kid, to develop toughness while also being aware and sensitive to the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid is facing? Do you have any advice for us?
Well, so I'm going to preface this is that I am a little bit old school. I'm hitting the 50 mark here very quickly. And, as I previously shared, I was coached under what I would quote as old school coaches of, expecting you to work through things, right? You got a bloody nose, go stick some, Kleenex up your nose and get right back out there. And so I still feel that our kids are able to reach those standards. I think as a coach, you set those standards, right? You set your expectations. And I think as long as you're front loading those expectations and being a very good communicator to your kids, that the kids will rise to those expectations. I am not a believer in setting the bar low in any part of my life, as a coach or as an AD. I want whatever program that I am involved with to exceed expectations. And sometimes, that is, you do have to be tough and maybe work through some things that are uncomfortable. But I absolutely agree with you, with our student athletes, that we have to be mindful of, where they're at. I'm going to bring in the topic of social media right now. I don't know how other school districts in other states are feeling or doing, but social media, as good as it can be in some areas, gosh, it is an area where there's a lot of bullying going on there, and where kids are, going back and forth and just, being ugly. And so those are things that our generation never had to deal with. We did not have to deal with social media, Twitter or the Snapchat or whatever else is out there. We didn't have to deal with that. And so my reasoning for bringing that in is because, we could have, a couple, kids on our team that are coming to practice and they're just a little down and out. You're like, hey, what's happening? Like, well, such and such posted this about me today, and they're down, their feelings are hurt. They're down in the dumps, so we have to be, aware of that. But at the same time, I think you can use that again, depending on your relational capacity to your students, and your athletes. You can use that as a teaching moment of, gosh, so-and-so, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Is there anything that I can help you, to make you feel better? But, and here's the old fashioned in me, but we're at practice now. We're vying for a state championship in 2 weeks. And I need my, starting two guard. I need you here right now. So what can I do to help you before we transition onto the floor? Because once you transition onto the floor, Miss Rustad becomes, Coach Rustad. We always joke, it's either AD Rustad or it's Coach Rustad. So we're going to go from AD Rustad to Coach Rustad. And my expectations are that, hey, you're in it to win it, and I need you focused and I need you here. So I think you can always take maybe those negative moments that our kids are struggling with, and turn it into a learning moment. It doesn't have to be we're going to enable them. Okay, so they're coming to practice. They've had a really bad day. Somebody called them a bad name. And now I'm going to baby them, or I'm going to enable them. Okay, well, I'm not going to push you as hard today, because somebody called you a bad name. That, for me and my lens, that's not how we're functioning. I'm going to, hey, what can I do to help you? What do you need from me? And then when we step on, and it's time to go, then, the expectations they're going to be high expectations. I need you working hard. I need you, in it, for your teammates and for your coaches. We need to get better. And then, again, then coming back around and connecting with them after practice. Hey, kiddo, go over there, give them a half a hug. How are you feeling now? What can I do for you? Well, Coach Rustad, I think I'm going to be okay. Or, can I swing by the office and talk to you in the morning? So just, again, that communication piece of touching base with our kids and having those, conversations with them, but also still continuing to have high expectations. I absolutely think that any child can handle that. And they want that. They want structure. I believe that our kids want structure. They want those high expectations. So I think we can still relate to our kids, when they're struggling, but that we can still be tough on them as well, and still connect with them. And every lesson or anything that happens to us can be turned into a life lesson. if you have that, if you have those communication skills where you can reach your kids.
Yeah, you really hit on some key components in there. I love the old school approach, and the toughness, but you were very explicit about, front loading the expectations, communicating them consistently. And then I love your word connection. I think those of us that had those tough coaches, okay, there was the connection there. We wanted to do well for them, but it wasn't just somebody barking orders at us. They had made that connection. Great stuff. This has been really cool, getting to know you and finding out about our connections. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with the Athletic Director's Toolbox, which is sponsored by Athletic Surveys. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from Athletic Surveys. And then when we come back, we're going to find out what Stacia Rustad is going to put into her Athletic Director Toolbox. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. As we said, we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them show you how to take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone. We've been visiting with Stacia Rustad, the activities director and the assistant girls basketball coach at Wasilla High School in Wasilla, Alaska. Certainly has a very impressive athletic background, but now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. What 3 items are going in Stacia Rustad's toolbox?
Okay, so I've already mentioned 2, so those don't count towards my 3, but I am going to review with those. So the first one is that you have to be organized, and if you're not naturally an organized person, then you need to find some tools that can help you become organized. Whether it's a planner, a specific type of calendar, a big calendar. At Wasilla, I have a big calendar that takes up my entire side of my wall, that has the year's worth of activities, and then I also have my Go Everywhere with Me Jostin's school calendar as well. And so, but just one, you've got to be organized. And if it's not something that comes natural, you need to learn to be organized, or quite frankly, you're going to struggle. You're going to forget that you canceled a game and it's still in your book and you still have officials coming to that game. And so you have to be organized in order to be a successful AD. The other tip that I already mentioned is just being a great communicator. You cannot over communicate to your, particularly your in-season coaches, but you just have to be a great communicator to the staff that you're building, to the custodians, to your coaches, your community. So just being a great communicator. And again, I don't feel that we can ever over communicate to be an effective AD. All right, so now getting back to my other tips for my new ADs out there is number 1, you cannot be afraid to ask for help. Your ego cannot be so big that you cannot, that you don't allow yourself to ask for help. You have to, because there's going to be certain things that, you can maneuver your way through and learn it on the go. But then there's going to be other items where you just can't fake it. And so, having getting those connections early on when you go into a school and you become the AD. All right, who are the other ADs in your school district, or in your borough, or however it's set up where you live, and reaching out to those people, introducing yourself, and so that there's some sort of connection there. One of the things that I think that in Alaska we do a great job is we're part of Region 3, which encompasses the valley which we live in, a couple private schools, Kodiak Island, and then the Kenai Peninsula, for any of you that may have some idea of the state of Alaska. So that's encompassing Region 3. And I really feel that one of our strongest traits as a region is that we reach out to each other constantly about, whether it be, who hosted the previous, region volleyball tournament, and can I have all of the paperwork that you submitted, a year ago, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Can you just forward it on to me, and I'll make some tweaks, change it to Wasilla High School, and boom, I'm sending it out. So that's just an example of, don't be afraid to ask others for help. It doesn't make you sound silly. It doesn't make you sound like you don't know what you're doing. That it's just part of being a professional, because if you want to present things on the day that it is, the event is happening, then we're doing all the behind the scenes work. And if you don't understand all the behind the scenes, you're going to find yourself in trouble and, in the hot seat on the day of event. So again, don't be afraid to ask for help. My second one, it kind of goes back to that relationship capacity, is you have to be able to apologize when you mess up. You have to be able to, again, get over your ego, if you have one, and say, go to your, let's say it was a head coach, and that, your team showed up at another school for an event, but it had been canceled and you forgot to inform your coach. There's no making excuses. There's no blaming it on the other school. There's no blaming it on the officials. It's, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I messed up. I forgot to inform you that this game was canceled yesterday. I apologize that you, your kids, our parents, and some of our community members showed up at that event at the other school. This is totally my fault. So apologizing to your head coaches. I would send out, an email, whether that program is using Band or whatever type of, social media platform that the head coach is using to communicate to those parents. I would get on that and send out a personal apology, so that they know it wasn't my head coach's mess up. It was my mess up. So again, do not be afraid to apologize when you mess up. You need to hold yourself accountable, just as we hold all of our, coaches and student athletes and parents accountable. We have to hold ourselves accountable as well. So apologizing when you mess up. And my next one is going to be setting high expectations. So you need to set high expectations for yourself. What type of program do you want to be functioning? When if you're out in the grocery store and you walk by two individuals and they're talking about Wasilla High School, how do you want them to be talking about Wasilla High School? So having high expectations of yourself, of your facilities, of your coaches, of your student athletes, and all of this, it can be easily done through communicating, at your parent meetings, front loading what your expectations are in front of everybody. You have your coaches there, you have your athletes there, you have your parents there, front loading the expectation. And an example of this, and some people might say, well, Ms. Rustad, I think, you might be pushing the boundaries a little much, but at my parent meeting, I go over parent expectations, what my expectations are of our parents when they're sitting in the stands, and right now, in the state of Alaska, we're struggling with officials for almost all of our, activities and sports. And so just last week, again, I said, parents, please do not be, yelling out and shouting degrading comments towards our umpires. we're just thankful we have an umpire there for our varsity conference game. And so, just again, front loading that communication and setting high expectations for your coaches, your student athletes, and your parents. Because if you're setting those high expectations, not that everybody's going to reach them, but they're going to hopefully at least strive to meet those expectations. So when people are out and about in your community and you walk by those two people that are talking about Wasilla High School, they're going to say, gosh, I was at the baseball game last week, and I couldn't believe the sportsmanship that was being shown by, those Wasilla High School baseball players, and I don't even have a son in that program, but I was super proud to be able to see how well that those boys, not only played, but had great sportsmanship. As an AD, that's the kind of that's the conversation that I want to walk by in my grocery store and overhear by two people I have no idea who they are. And again, that just, it goes back into tying those high expectations and front loading at the beginning of your seasons.
No, I mean, you probably saw me writing down notes as you were, giving all those. A great collection, and again, very much reflective of some of the things you shared with us today. Communicating, involving the stakeholders. I love the part about parents, and I don't think you're out of line at all. I think you're cutting edge about sitting the parents down and saying, these are the expectations we have for you. We have expectations for the kids, for the coaches, and yes, you're part of the program. These are the expectations we have for you. Great stuff. Stacia, again, this has been wonderful getting to know you. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, and listeners, I think you probably should, how can they get in touch with you?
Again, yes, my email is my first name, so Stacia, STACIA .Rustad, RUSTAD @MATSUK12.US. And I can also go ahead and give you my phone number. Area code is 907-352-8249. And that's my school number.
Okay. Thanks so much for sharing. And thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me this opportunity to share a couple things that I have, we've experienced success with. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, absolutely enjoyed talking with you, and all the best moving forward. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back again just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. And before we go, we want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.